everyone. Welcome to Woolen Spinning. My name is Rachel and it is Tuesday, July 4th, 2023. Welcome. Happy July 4th to those who are in the US and happy Canada Day to those who are in Canada because July 1st is Canada Day here. So for anybody in North America, I hope that you are celebrating however you feel comfortable celebrating, whatever that looks like for you in your country. I had a dead battery, so right as we were going to start, the battery started flashing and went out. So I was like all ready to go, everything's good, and then all of a sudden everything died. So I was like, of course. I hope you guys are doing really well. We come here every couple of weeks to talk about spinning and hand spinning and using our yarns, talking about sweater knitting. We talk about process, we talk about product, we talk about sampling, spindle spinning, we talk about a lot of different things. So thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate that you're taking the time out of your day to spend a little bit of time with me. I will talk about my shirt in just a moment. So we have a very full show today. Thank you, Rebecca, for questioning about the shirt. It's good to see everybody. We've got a very full chat today, and it's so lovely to see people, especially because for many of you, you're off today, so you're actually able to watch live. You're not at work, so it's good. I think the chat is a little bit fuller than usual, so that's just absolutely wonderful. The last couple of weeks has been very full. We've had a lot going on. I do have a montage of sort of what the last couple of weeks has looked like. We've had a couple of trips. We took the kids down to Portland, Oregon, and I took the kids across on the ferry to Vancouver Island. It's about an hour and a half ferry boat to see my brother and his family for a few nights. So we've kind of been away from home quite a lot. So my shirt is from Portland. So let me stand up and show you guys. It's beautiful. It's very, very lovely quality, but this is from the Starlight Knitting Society in Portland. So this is yarn and of course the knitting needles. I got 2 t-shirts when I was there. I didn't want to buy any yarn and have to bring it home and whatnot because we'd packed very, very lightly. We were driving, so we had room, but I just have been trying to be really, really thoughtful about what I purchased, and I had no data on my phone while we were away. So I could use the Wi-Fi at the hotel and I could text, but I couldn't use any data. So I couldn't really walk around the store looking at Ravelry and at the projects that I have queued and then matching yarn and kind of working through that. So I thought, that's not an option. So if there's something else that I see in the store that I would like to, I wanted to support them like at least a little bit. And so when I saw the t-shirts, I was like, sold. So yeah, I love it too. It fits very well for anybody who starts looking at the sizes on the website and whatnot. This is a size small. And to be honest with you, I didn't try it on in the store. I kind of wish I'd gotten the extra small. The sleeves are quite long. I prefer my sleeves to be a little bit more sleeve cappy. It's a little bit baggy because it's also very, very long. So just like, I'm just putting a bug in your ear for those. Like some people really like this. I used to love my t-shirts like this, but I don't quite so much anymore. So I kind of wish I had bought the extra small. But it's a wonderful shop. It's great. Anybody in the area. So we were staying right downtown, right across. For anybody who knows Portland, we were staying about a 5-minute walk from Providence Park. And Starlight is not right in that downtown core, and so we had to go on like 2 buses, and then on the way back we went a little bit out of our way so that we could go on the tram, like on their light rail, to come back, because James is all about trains, and so it took us like 40 minutes out of our way, and we were basically gone all afternoon. It was really fun, but we got to see a lot of the city, and you'll see in the montage later of what we did and where we went on that. So yeah, super fun. We went all over the city on transit. We just parked the truck for the weekend with the hotel. We just left it, and then we just took transit everywhere. We always do that. It's a great way to see the city, even if you miss some of the things, like you don't have as much time to do like museums and some of the other stuff. But we find like what we really enjoy when we go to another place is to see where people live in the neighborhoods and kind of, get off the beaten track a little bit. And so we'll often get a day pass for transit, and we'll just kind of go around. The thing is, in the States, Google for transit is incredible. So it's really easy to use, way better than how Google's set up for transit in Canada. So yeah, super fun. Anyhow, we did go to the Oregon Museum of Science and Science and Information, Science and Industry. Diane had recommended it. You guys all know Diane. I don't know if she's here today. I know they've probably got July the 4th celebrations going on, but she had recommended it and it was awesome. But we did kind of laugh a little bit because we'd gone all the way to Portland, which is only a 5-hour drive. It's not that far. And we got to OMSI and the kids had a blast. They loved it. It was such a great recommendation from Diane. So thank you so much. Because we had the whole day to kill until we went to the Portland Timbers game that evening for Major League Soccer, for MLS. And so she had suggested it. And so we went all the way to Portland. It's not that far, but just follow along for a minute. And the exhibit that was on was from the Royal BC Museum, which is located in Victoria. So that was we were kind of giggling to ourselves because after we read the first couple of signs, like it was about orcas, about killer whales, orcas. And after we got through the first couple of information screens, we were like, this sounds very Canadian, like the way that it's written and the language and stuff. Like this sounds very like BC. And they were referencing the University of Victoria, and they referenced the University of British Columbia, and they referenced the University of Washington and some of the work around Seattle area. And we were like, this is very familiar. And so then we kept going, and then they were referencing Indigenous peoples, and there was a whole bunch of other stuff. We were like, and so then we got to the end because there was no labels of where it had come from. And we got to the end and it was like, proudly put together by the Royal BC Museum. We were like, oh, of course. So yeah, it was funny. Anyhow, we had a great trip. So let me share with you a little bit, just before we get into the intro credits and stuff, let me just share with you a little bit about what's coming up this month. I don't have everything ready to go this month. It's been absolutely crazy, but Woolen Spinning Radio has been released wherever you get your podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Audible, iTunes, it's all there. And Rebecca and I are just reflecting on our year of color to date. And then I've got the complimentary contrast coming soon. It'll be out next Thursday, a week and a bit from now. But the Wool Circle, the first part of Rebecca's Diapalooza, is already live. So you guys can go and check that out for the Wool Circle patrons. And then we've got a whole bunch of stuff coming up this month. We've got a Maker Morning tomorrow morning. I don't know how I'm going to get up, but I will make it work. I'm so tired. I'm just exhausted. And then Spinning Staples is coming up. I put June there, but I meant July 12th and July 26th. So just ignore that typo. It's not June, it's July. And then we also have groups. We have a whole bunch of like grassroots groups that have come up in our community that I am just... Thank you so much to those who have stepped forward and have started hosting this stuff. Like, I know you guys are really craving it and wanting more time together and wanting to foster that sense of community and that sense of fellowship together. And I think just the camaraderie of sharing a similar passion with one another is really what's bringing people together. And so to those, you know who you are, who are hosting these groups, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't always make it, but I try to pop in as I am able, even if it's just for a few minutes. Like I popped into Virtual Spin Group this morning. It was just for a couple minutes, but it's so good to see everyone. You know, Becca was there, Deb, Amanda, Ellen, Eve, of course, Glenda. It's just so good to see everybody. So Fiber Prep is this week. It's coming up this Friday. It's at 10 a.m. Pacific. And Weaving Group is the opposite Fridays, so there's always something on Fridays. And then Virtual Spin Group is every Tuesday at 9 Pacific. So on the weeks that's the live stream, it's an hour prior. If you're in the Slack channel under #general, that's where all the links are posted for these Zoom groups. So if you're kind of on the fence about joining Woolen Spinning and joining the Patreon community, at least join the spinning circle so that you can get into the Slack channel and at least participate in the groups if that's something that you're looking for and you're looking for that fellow friendship with people who have that shared passion with you, because those are the groups that's happening. And of course, we've got book club coming up on help me out here is Becca here. It's coming up this coming Monday at 12 noon Pacific. And we're finishing up our book club, our current book, which is part 2 of High Conflict by Amanda Ripley. Our initial discussion about it, the first part was awesome. We had a really good conversation about becoming more conflict resilient. Diana was in the group. She's been doing a lot of reading and research about this. Several other books came up. It's under #books in the Slack channel if you're looking for other book recommendations. Becca posted those there, and it's just brought out a lot of really great conversation about all these different things that we're kind of all thinking about. You know, we have a very divided world at this time, and how do we foster conversation versus more conflict? And how are we able to be more conflict resilient? And I think that's really important. So let's get into the actual show and the meat and potatoes of the show, and I will show you our life in Langley sort of later in the show for those who aren't quite as interested but are here for more like the spinning and the knitting and stuff, because I know not everybody cares about what we do in our day-to-day life between the podcasts, and that's totally okay. That's just not why you're here, and I'm okay with that. I don't take it personally. We're all here for different reasons. When we come back, we will start off the show with Ask Anything. We have a bunch of Ask Anything, so let's do that when we come back. A thank you to our sponsor, Brother Drum Carder. They are dedicated to giving you the very best of carding products with a focus on quality, affordability, and customer satisfaction. They are building mill processing equipment, so please stay tuned. Be sure to check out the new products on their website and follow them on Facebook and Instagram at Brother Drum Carder. All right, so we had a really great question in Ask Anything, and I just realized that I'm not totally sure how I am going to share with you the photo of the yarn, but maybe what we'll do is I'll just talk about it. It was in the yarn that the photo that Lauren took is actually in the show notes, which is at patreon.com. And I'll post the link here in the live chat. So if you don't have the link for the show notes, it's just down below in the down bar. But I also just put it in the thing in the stuff in the live chat. All right, so we've had a couple of really great questions surface in the Ravelry group under the Ask Anything thread, and so this first question was kind of more of a like housekeeping question that I thought was really, really good. So hi there. Is there room on the board for a 2023 Zero to Hero thread? I've wanted to participate even before I learned to spin. I've got a couple of Zero to Hero projects in the beginning stages. So thank you so much for this question. Hashtag Zero to Hero was a thing that we've done over the years in woolen spinning. It's kind of been the idea is to go from fiber all the way to a finished item, whatever that looks like for you. It could be raw fiber, it could be comb top, it could be roving, but all the way to a finished item. And it was something that was sort of a bit of a Mount Everest to climb, and that you would work on it throughout the year, and that you would have something at the end of the year to share. Zero to Hero we did every year for quite a number of years. It was like 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. I think we skipped like a year in there. We're halfway through 2023. I did not start it at the beginning of the year, and there were a couple of reasons for that. If Zero to Hero is something that interests people, we can talk about bringing it back for 2024. The reason that I kind of took a break from it and why we decided to serve as a community, nobody kind of said anything at the beginning of the year about wanting to do it, was because we've done it a lot. We also have been doing different things this year. We've been working on our year of color has been the primary focus, and a lot of people have been just working on ongoing fiber prep that often becomes a Zero to Hero project. And so the fiber prep thread in Ravelry has sort of become where a lot of people share that work and share those larger projects together. The Zero to Hero group has also become a really a place to share some of those bigger projects. So like for me personally, the project that I've been working on the most that's sort of fiber prep related is my fin. And I've been working on that in the background, just very quietly, trucking my way through it. I just carded up a whole bunch more bats for it. And that's this project here. And I did all of this sampling initially, and I've just been carding up more and more bats in the background, lock popping them, opening them up, just slowly working my way through them until I've gotten to that point where I actually now have 3 finished skeins of yarn, which I shared about on the podcast a few episodes ago, maybe to episode 268 maybe. And I'm at that point now where I've carded up a whole bunch more bats, and I just need to sit down and get more spun. As soon as I'm finished my combo spin that I'm working on right now, this is going back on the wheel. This is going to be my priority. So Zero to Hero is kind of happening. Everybody's working on something in the background, but maybe not overtly hashtag Zero to Hero 2023. So that's the answer to that. The other question was, how do folks keep their skeins so nice looking after washing? I like to snap and thwack my skeins while they're wet, and it seems like every time I do this, I mess with some of the loops in the skein. I've tried snapping it between my hands again after washing it to even it back out, but it doesn't seem to help much. Maybe I should be tying the skein more tightly in the first place. Don't do that. This is an example of what I mean. I tried to hide the worst of it for the picture, but you can still see a little of the wonkiness. So unfortunately, I don't have the photo here in the show to share with you. I'm not sure if I can actually find the photo. I couldn't find it. Oh, here it is. Oh, I'm amazing. Toot toot puff puff for just a moment. There it is. That's Lauren's yarn. Okay, I know you do, Kelly. She says, I love Zero to Hero. You were one of the main people that was a Zero to Heroer, and every time I sort of think about it, I always think of you, actually, Kelly. You and Rebecca, you guys would always have some grand Zero to Hero project, and I was always totes jelly. Because I always felt like I tried to make room for it, and it always would get away from me. You know, by about this time of the year, it would get away from me. Anyhow, Lauren's yarn. Let's land this plane. So I think the big thing with this is there's 2 things going on. What is your fiber? What was the content of your fiber in your skein? And number 2, because that will affect the aesthetics of the overall finished yarn when you skein it. And the second question is, how tightly are you plying? So different fibers and different twist angles and different yarns are just going to look different. There's 2 things you can do to get that really beautiful looking skein, whether it's drapey and kind of lays on the table like a drapey, beautiful, like, you know, like 100% silk yarns kind of thing. Or they're sort of your bouncy, puffy, springy yarns like your Targies and your Polworths and even your Merinos, where they just have that puff factor in the skein, and the skein, no matter what you do, is going to look beautiful. It doesn't matter which kind of fiber it is and what the yarn is, what the fiber is in your skein, and sort of the reality is, if you're not re-skeining your yarn after washing, there's just going to be a bit of wonkiness in your skeins. So there's a couple of things there. This is obviously kind of a silky yarn. It's got a lovely sheen to it. It's probably got more drape than poof. I'm not exactly sure what the fiber content of this yarn. It's got a gentle twist angle. You can see that marling right in the center there. You can see that twist angle is sort of about 35, maybe 30 degrees. So that right there, the yarn's just going to be a little bit, it's going to lay a bit more. It's going to be a little bit more drapey compared to sort of those tightly spun, tightly plied, poofy yarns. And the skein itself, there's sort of a sweet spot between twisting it enough to get your skein to pop into place and over twisting it where it's just too tight and the yarns, the yarn strands just don't lay nicely. And then there's the opposite where we don't twist them enough and they just kind of lay limp. So reskeining is a big factor to getting a really lovely skein. Things shift around when in the washing, they just do. And so reskeining is a big thing. And then number 2, playing around with how many twists you put in for that particular skein of yarn to get it to lay properly. One of the things that I often do, and I don't have a skein of yarn right here to show you, is I will keep one end of my hand stagnant and I'll twist with the other hand. And I use my chin to kind of like skein it, like to get it to fold in half. And I hold it as under tension as I possibly can. I know that sounds a bit complicated, but I hold it as under tension as I possibly can while I'm popping those two halves together. And then when I loop them together, I try to kind of manipulate it a little bit and twist it into place a little bit so that it really holds its shape and holds its loveliness, basically. Here's a skein of yarn. So this has been sitting for a while. This is from my Trinigan. And you can see that it's sort of, it's getting a bit messy. It's getting a little bit not sort of quite nice in the skein. So what I'll do is I'll just snap it a couple of times, just open it up, get some of the puff factor back, get some air in there. And then I use the one hand, 4, 5, 6, that's probably a bit much, 7. You see how tight that is? And then I'll let it pop into place. And that's how I'll photograph skeins. And then from there, Lauren, just like you mentioned, you said like you manipulated it a little bit for the photo, then yeah, I mean, that's what we all do. We all manipulate our yarns a little bit to make them really pretty for, but this is Falkland. Like it's going to be a bit of a poofy skein. It's going to look like those really, you know, it's just going to look like that. If that was silk, it would drape, it would just hang. And you just have to figure out that sweet spot of making your yarns look really pretty. This isn't a bad photo. Sometimes too, the other thing to think about is your lighting. Try to get it somewhere where there's natural light and you can reflect the light back at it from the other side. So try to have one light source, like one window, and then use cardboard covered with aluminum foil works really well, or just a plain white sheet of paper, and put it on this side of your skein. So your skein is between the sheet or the cardboard and the window, and reflect it back and find that sweet spot of where the light hits it just right, and then photograph it. And that goes a long way, regardless of what your skein looks like. So I hope that's helpful. People are chiming in the chat. Kelly was saying, I've never reskeined after washing. I have to admit, I rarely do it unless I need accurate yardage. I will reskein when I need accurate yardage. 9 times out of 10, I would even say 99 times out of 100, I don't reskein either. Oh, Kelly says 2024, I might actually have some room for 0 to hero. So that's really great. So y'all just have I love it, Lisa. She says, my solution is not to worry about it. I like that, Christine. Well done. Rebecca doesn't reskein either. Amanda doesn't reskein. I have to admit, I do when I need to know what the yardage is, but often I will do my yardage when I'm winding my cake. So I have a fishing line counter, and I'll hook that up. I'll put that in place, and then I'll figure out my yardage as I'm winding the cake. Yeah. I retwist the skein after drying, but I don't rewind. Yes, agreed, Becca, me too. So all y'all, I just laugh every time. So all y'all are just having your yarn just in free loops. That is anarchy, or am I confused? I always skein it back after I wash it because otherwise I don't know how to store it. Yeah, I think we all store our yarn like this. The other thing I wanted to mention too was don't store your yarn in cakes. That's something we haven't talked about for a really super long time. You want to store your yarn in skein form. Elizabeth Zimmerman actually wrote about this quite a lot in her work. Every single one of her books that I have read, she talks about it. But when we store our yarn in cakes, I don't have a cake right here to show you, but she talks about the pressure points, and that it's not stored with equal pressure on every single side because it's been wound. So there will be more tightly pulled pressure on the yarn as it goes around in the cake, and that there will over time be weak spots. And it's funny because my yarn that's been stored for a really super long time in cakes, that's exactly what's happened. I've got weak points, and skein form, most of my yarn is totally fine, except for the little bit that got eaten by moths, but that was my fault. Before we move on and get into the intro credits, I wanted to mention I went to Beehive Wool Shop in Victoria while we were there. I haven't been in there since, I want to say like 2017, 2018. It's been a long time. It wasn't because of the pandemic, it's just because I never get a chance to go there when we're at my brother and sister-in-law's house. But I did buy some yarn. So sorry for the crinkling of the paper bag, but I did get some yarn for a sweater that's been in my queue forever, and the price was right. I did not spend a lot of money. I did not get, really special yarn. This is just workhorse yarn in sort of a sandal type color. And the bottom one is Barocco. It's their Lana yarn, and it's a heavy sport, light, very, very light DK. And the top is a mohair silk. I think it's from Drops. Yeah, kids silk from Drops. So very workhorsey, very affordable. And this is for a sweater that I've had in my queue forever. And when I finish the sweater that I'm going to talk about today, I'll swatch for that. It's just something for me to keep my hands busy and to work. So that's it for all of the intro stuff. Let's do the credits.
A thank you to our sponsor, Brother Drum.
I think we did the intro credits, didn't we? I did it already. So now we get to get into spindling. So let's talk quickly about that. Okay. I'm all discombobulated because we did Ask Anything. So it like totally threw off my my groove. All right, so I have actually been spindle spinning. I'm going to go to the other camera just to show you. This is my, it was originally for my Attune shawl. This is the Fat Cat Knits London Fog in Falkland. It's the 6 ounces. I've started off with just trying to spin 2 ounces. And I actually started, so I need to build more onto this. So what was the obvious thing to do? Start a new spindle. So I started. This is my other Bosworth spindle. It's about 18 grams. I love this spindle. I actually kind of wish I had 2. And I started building this up. This is 2 nests of fiber. This is the second nest thus far. And this is all I got done. I didn't do a whole lot while we were away. It's just too hard with the dog. When we're at my brother and sister-in-law's place, and it's just kind of, it's busy when we're there. There's just a lot going on. So I have a little bit more done. I've divided up all the little nests for this first initial 2 ounces, which I shared with you guys before. This was all, I was spinning at the pool. Oh my goodness. I took the kids swimming, and I was hoping to get some work done, and my mom called, which was totally fine. It was my birthday. My mom called. We had a lovely conversation, and I just sat there and spindled. And this spindle, my bigger Bosworth, which is about 22 or 23 grams, for some reason, I think it's because I was on the phone and I wasn't really paying attention, I kept dropping it. And on the tile, I was kind of getting a bit frustrated, and in the end, that was actually why I started the second spindle. And I got 2 nests done. I'm almost done this last little bit. And it actually felt really good to sit there and spindle while I was chit-chatting with her. And we do sometimes get on the phone together when I take the kids to the pool. And I need to remember that and make sure that I always have my spindles with me, because it's such a perfect time to be able to sit and spindle spin while I'm on the phone with her. These are all of the spindles that I pulled out to work on this project, because they are ones that tend to get neglected. But to be honest with you, I'm not sure how much I'm going to use my Turtle Made spindles. They're 35 grams. I find them a bit heavy now. I'm really tempted to look into adding a couple of support spindles to my fleet. I only have 3 that I really like working with, that I pull out all the time. And I think I might actually invest in a few more, just to give me like 4 or 5 to just rotate when I'm working on these kind of projects. I really like my Inoxia spindles, but they still have, I need to ply the bats that my included with the spindles and get those freed off, and then I'll use them for this project as well. So that's kind of what's going on in terms of my spindling. I'm so sorry. In terms of my spindling, that's kind of what's going on. So nothing new to share with you. I did pull out, where did I put it? It's way back there. I did pull out my support spindles last week, and I worked on them for a couple of minutes, and it was like coming home. So that's something that's a priority for this week, is to make sure that I pull them out at least a couple of times. All right, knitting. Oh, knitting. So my knitting has been kind of ticking me off lately, and I'll tell you why. My hands have been really, really good recently. I used to have a lot of problems with my right hand, and I used to get a lot of tinnitus, sorry, not tinnitus, that's in your ear, tendinitis in the back of my hand, and a lot of irritation. But I've really made sure that I choose projects that are consistent with being able to keep that under control and not allow it to get out of control and really flare up. And so that means choosing patterns that I can knit in the round, choosing patterns that have a lot of lace, choosing patterns that aren't all over reverse stockinette and where there's a lot of purling, because it's purling that really does it in. I have Suzanne, actually, she's asking if I've tried the smaller sizes of the Turtle Made, and actually she had gifted me with one to give away on the podcast, which I think ended up going to Dorothy, actually. But I haven't played with them anymore. My concern is yarn storage, being able to store enough on them. I really like to be able to spin on a spindle for a while, and yeah, I do wonder about that. However, I am happy to explore that some more. So I was knitting on the Cat Bells cardigan. So I had knit that twice before. I've shown you guys on the podcast my other versions of it several times. And I had told you last show, I put it on my dress form and showed you how truly huge it was. And I pulled out the needles so that you guys could get a really good sense around my Diana doll how big it was. And it came way down here, and it was probably about 10 plus inches of positive ease. It was just way too big. So I told you guys I was going to pull this out. Now this yarn is Disdero Ranch. She's doing it in colors. So this is her CVM. She calls it her CVM Co worsted. So it's CVM with Corriedale blended in. And then the way that they're doing it at the mill up in Kamloops is adding some bits and pieces of like mohair and other bits and pieces of yarn to make it a tweed. It's really pretty. It's a lovely yarn. It's a worsted weight, but I actually think it's more of an Aran weight, especially after washing, because it blooms quite a lot. It's lovely, but it's hard on my hands. Anything over about 4 millimeters, I start to struggle. So I think it's the weight of the yarn, the weight of the fabric, the size, how you have to move the needles. I've talked about it before. I don't like knitting, or I am not able to knit with bigger yarn for very long. Cascade Ecological seems to be about my upper limit, and that's such a light, airy, underspun yarn that I think that's why I can get away with it, because it's not onerous on my hands. This is a denser yarn. It's a little bit heavier. It's more substantial. It's going to last and wear and tear a lot longer. And so I started searching for patterns, and I started looking for stuff, and I was like, I've got to do something with, like, I want to do something with the yarn. I don't want it to go into my stash and be one of those things that 2 or 3 years from now I pull it out and be like, oh yeah, that yarn. So I did a gauge swatch, which I should have done initially, and I didn't. This is on 6 millimeter needles, and it's a little bit too open. Is a little bit too, you can see how I can stick my fingers through here. After washing, when I was knitting it, it felt correct. But the 6 millimeter, once I washed it, again, it bloomed, it opened up, but unfortunately it was a little bit too drapey. I didn't think though that I could go down to 5 millimeter needles and be okay, and my wrist be okay. Like I just was like, I know my hands and I know what I can and can't do. I need this yarn to be knit more open. So I went on Ravelry, I searched the gauge with the intention of knitting it at 5.5 millimeter needles or a US size 9. So I did just that. I went and I kept looking. There was a lot of brioche cardigans, like the Sunday cardigan by Petite Knits, and there was a couple of other ones, a couple of designers I hadn't heard of before, which was kind of neat. There was one that was a slipped stitch kind of rib looking one that was really cute. Nora really liked that one, but I didn't like the aesthetic in the tweed. I wanted something that was more rustic. Anyhow, I kept coming back to this one again and again and again. And this is Amy Christoffers, like, have you met me? And it's her Mandolin cardigan. So this is what it looks like when it's finished. And she knit it in gray, and you can see the lace there along the back. 3 needle bind off for the shoulders up here. And then you pick up and knit the front collar. Let me see if I can find a photo of the front of the sweater. That's the front. So you do about 4 inches of ribbing across the front to close that front of the sweater, which just makes it oversized. It's cozy. It's got that drop shoulder that I love. Yeah, it was just, I kept coming back to it again and again and again and again. I was just reading your comment, Kelly. I don't know how people knit with those honkin' US 11 needles. It kills me totally. And then Rebecca says very, very slowly. Eve says, I knit a shawl on 7 millimeter needles and it killed my hands. Yes. So I actually thought about rejigging this pattern for gauge. Lisa said at some point it's worth rejigging the pattern for your gauge. And because it has a drop shoulder, your row gauge shouldn't mess you up. Absolutely. And I had thought about that I had done that basically with cat bells, but it was still too big. I also thought about playing around with some different, like just doing a stockinette sweater, but I was worried about having to purl all the way back. So I thought, well, at least with the lace, it slows you down for one. Although I'll talk about that in a minute. And because there's pattern stitches on both the right side and the wrong side, then you're not doing that rest row where you're purling all the way back. So with this, it's knit and purls on the way back. It's not a rest row in between. So that was really helpful for my hand. And so I downloaded the pattern and read it through. I still wasn't totally convinced, but I have to admit, what really drew me was the rustic nature of the big needles, big yarn, the tweed with the lace. I love that aesthetic. So the one thing I will say though is these here, in here, these big panels of lace. So this is a leaf, and then there's this big panel of lace, and then there's a leaf, and so on. These have knit 4-togethers. Oh, sweet mother of pearl, my poor hands. So that was less than ideal. But it went, as you can see, it knit up very fast. So I started this on our way down to Portland. I cast it on our way down, and I knit all the way down. When we got home, I had almost finished the body of the sweater, almost. I think I was about here. And Victoria, I did the rest of the body. On the way home, I did one of the fronts. And then over the course of this weekend, I did the other front and the back. Very, very, very fast. Because of my yoke's depth and the size that I'm knitting, the upper part, like once you divide for the yoke, it ends up, for me, it ended up being 1 chart repeat plus half of the next one. So it was like really easy knitting. It was fast. And by then you're dealing with half of your stitches, right? So it just feels like it goes that much quicker. And then last night, while Nora and I, does anybody remember Boy Meets World? I loved that show growing up. I had the biggest crush on Ryder Strong. I even have his autograph. It's in my diary from when I was like 10 or 11. Anyways, while we were watching it, Nora just thinks it's totally weird. She's like, Mommy, this show is really weird. I don't get some of the jokes. So I have to like slow it down and I have to explain them. Anyways, I started the first sleeve. So she wants you to do increases right away. Like I think for my size, it's every 10th row or something, but the sleeve is actually already quite large. So I'm going to work a little bit further up before I do a couple of increases, because I think this sleeve actually would fit me almost all the way up. I'll need some increases by the time I get to the elbow. So I'll knit another chart repeat, I think, and then I'll start increasing, because these sleeves are quite hefty. It's meant to be oversized. Like, it's meant to be, there's meant to be a lot of positive ease. But I got too tired last night and I kept messing up. I kept forgetting to do the rest row in between the lace. So I'd have a yarn over row, and then the next row I'd be doing yarn overs again. And I'd have to tink back, and I was like, no, I'm too tired. No good. So I just bought a similar colored yarn for a Tin Can Knits pattern. Oh, that's awesome, Kelly. And you know what I realized? You guys are going to laugh at me. I realized I was, working on this yarn to review it for Disdero Ranch. And then I was looking at my stash the other night and kind of looking through what I wanted to work on into the fall, because I'm trying to be really intentional about what I knit and what I make. And I have DK weight yarn in the same color. So I obviously was on like a certain thought pattern this winter. Bye, Becca. It was good to see you. So that's that pattern. And then the other one, we've got a finished object. So Diana had a quick costume change. It's done. I finished it. So you guys obviously I saw it underneath of the mandolin. I didn't want to get up and start farting around with this. This is not washed and blocked. That's actually what I'm going to do after we finish the stream today. But I'm really happy with how this turned out. So I actually finished this on the way down to Portland. I think I said that I cast on mandolin on the way down to Portland, but I didn't. I took this. And I worked on this on the way down to Portland. My rule at that point, because I was so stuck on Sleeve Island, you guys remember, like, I was so stuck and I was getting kind of frustrated. It was so much, this is so much brioche. Don't let that put you off. If you want to make this sweater, like, please don't let that put you off about the brioche, but it is a lot of knitting. I felt like for this whole sweater, I was knitting every stitch. And when I say that, what I'm talking about is, like, there's no potato chip knitting. I don't turn off and kind of go on autopilot with sweaters like this. I really literally feel like I'm knitting every single stitch. And some of my sweater patterns I've done over the last few years have been very much like that. The Stonecrop pullover was like that. The Shifty pullover. What else? There's been a few. Poet was like that. There's been a few. Anyhow, the reason why this felt like that is because with brioche, you literally are knitting every row twice. So, if this is however many rows this is, let's say it's 24 rows, this is actually 48 rows worth of knitting. And that's a lot. If you multiply that by all of the different rounds, like, that's a lot of rounds. So, and it's just the way that brioche works, but it's still, it's a fair investment in time. So my rule was I could not start anything else until this was done. And because I really wanted to cast on mandolin, it kept me going. So I actually finished this as we came into Bellingham in Washington, just before we went over the border. So to come back from Portland. So that felt really, really good. 3 needle bind, sorry, not 3 needle bind offs, tubular bind offs for all of the edges. So the cuffs at the bottom, the cuff, the hem down here, and the collar are all a tubular bind off. Worth it to do all of that grafting, because honestly, the finished edges look awesome. I did knit the smallest size in the end. I think it was the smallest size. The whole thing is knit on 3mm needles, and the ribbing is knit on 2.75mm needles. I don't know what that is in US sizing. I'm really sorry. And in terms of sizing, I ended up choosing I'm just going to double check. I think I chose the second size. I don't think I chose yeah, I did the second size. I did the size small, not the extra small. I wish they would do size 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think that would be better. But anyways, I did that. And the reason is because I did want some positive ease, but I didn't want it to be too oversized. I wanted it to fit through the bust, because my bust is a 34 inch and my upper bust is a 32. So I just was like, I'm right at that size where it would just be like, would fit me perfectly, but then it will give me lots of ease through the waist, because my waist is only 27. So it was just like finding that balance. And then my hips are back out to 34, 35, and then my full hip is 37. So I'm a true hourglass. I'm Marilyn Monroe, which is actually a little bit challenging for sweaters, but I've kind of been able to make it work, because if you have that ease through your waist, it gives the illusion of being quite hourglassy. So it actually works really quite well. And then you've got the easy peasy raglan up here. So I will take some FO photos, and I will finish this off and share it with you guys and show you when it's actually done. But it's done, and I'm really pleased with it. It is very warm. Christine is asking how warm is it. I'm of a certain age. Oh, bless you. I find anything warmer than DK weight is too warm unless I'm putting it on as outerwear. So this is knit in fingering weight yarn. This was Brooke. This was Gathering Yarns Brooke fingering, and it's basically double thick. So it's basically like, it feels like a double thick. I'm expecting this to be like my Shifty pullover that's quite warm. This is 100% wool. It's a woolen spun yarn as well, so it's going to trap that air, and it's going to feel quite warm. It's got that slightly fuzzy texture to it of that woolen yarn versus a worsted yarn that would be really smooth and have that really crisp look to it. So definitely something to think about for sure. You know, it's so funny, Rebecca, she says, if you really want to knit every stitch, try doing both colors of brioche in the same row. So I looked into it and I was like, yep, no. I watched a YouTube video and I was like, nope. Yeah, it's funny. I love brioche is potato chip knitting for me. It once I got down here, it was, but it's still labor intensive. It still takes time. That long sleeveless colorwork duster that we never see. Oh yeah, that sweater, that was a lot of work. My duster, you know what the problem with that one, Eve, was it's too big. Of course. It's too big. Yeah, it's the sleeve, like up here across the sleeve, it hangs off. Like it's just, it doesn't fit. So I'm constantly like pulling at it and playing with it. So yeah, super frustrating. Because that was something on my bucket list for a long time, and I ended up being kind of disappointed with it, which is just hard. It's hard when that happens. All right, we kind of missed spinning, and I didn't mean to miss spinning, but let's go back and let's chat about spinning. So just I wanted to talk about my combo spin. It was. Christine is asking if that was a Vogue pattern. It was, and it was one of the very first Vogue magazines that I got. I think it was back in 2005, 2006, and it was one of their anniversary editions of Vogue, and it had some gorgeous patterns in it. I still have it, but yeah, it just never really fit me properly. It was just not quite right, and it was kind of heartbreaking because I loved the pattern. It was all mosaic and it was beautiful, but it just doesn't fit me quite right. So yeah, it's always hard when that happens. Okay, my Attune shawl. So this is the combo spin that I've been kind of alluding to. I'll show. I'm just going to move Diana just back a little bit, give her some space. And this was a skein, a braid of Tea Party, Grouse, and, oh shoot, what's the other one? Woodland. That's the one in the middle, and then Grouse is at the very end, right here, this green one. And that's what ties together the three braids is that limey green color. As I know that color looks good on me because of my coloring, it's not my favorite color though. I don't love that color, but because I had done this combo spin for the book when Felicia wrote Dying to Spin and Knit, which I talked about on the last episode 269 if you missed it. I really wanted to recreate this yarn, and this is the yarn that I bought after doing all of that work. So I took all of them and I divided them all up, and I carded them all together. So Dion had asked a great question in, I think it was Maker Morning. She had asked, or maybe it was whatever group it was. She had asked if it was possible for me to show how I created my little nests of fiber. So what I did was I split all of them in each bump. I divided each braid into two, and I put the one half aside, and then the other half I divided into 8 strips. So once I had those 8 strips, I then took each of those and divided them again. So I ended up with 16 strips of fiber of every colorway, of the 3 colorways. 3, Rachel, not 4, 3. 3 colorways. So whatever 16 times 3 is what I ended up with for 48. No, that's not right. Was 16 times 8? 128. No, that's not right. 16 times 3. Oh my gosh, Rachel. Yeah, 48. Math. I'm actually quite good at math. It's just every so often I have like a mental, like a brain fart. Anyhow, so I took all of those 8 strips and I stripped them all down and into 16s. So Dion was asking me like how I did that. This is how I did that. I just tried to be really, really careful. This is sped up for time. I sped this up once I had videoed it, just because otherwise we would be here all day. It doesn't take that long, but it takes a minute. It takes a little bit, and I was able to go through and split them all. This is the last one. Some of them there were areas that were a little bit more difficult to split because they've got a little bit thin, but for the most part, these braids have been braided for so long, they were a little bit compacted. They weren't felted or anything, but they were a little bit compacted. I think sitting down to spin each of them would have been a little bit, I would have had to pre-draft them and pre-attenuate them and stuff. And I think that would have been a wee bit challenging. But what it offered me was these 3 sort of little strips. If I had tried to strip them again into 32s, I think that would have been too much. It probably would have been nicer for the spinning, but it would have been a bit too much. So that was stripping the fiber. And then what I did was I took one of each colorway and I carded them together. So Dion was wondering what it would look like what it actually looked like in practice to actually put it on the carder and card those up. So this is this here. And I laid the 3 of them kind of next to each other, and I literally just laid them onto the drum. Like, I'm not doing anything. Thankfully, they didn't end up, a lot of the fiber didn't end up on the Liquorin. Again, I think it's because they were slightly compacted that they stuck together and they went straight onto the Swift, which is the big drum at the back. That's this big drum up here is called the Swift, the big drum, and this is the Liquorin down here. I obviously have a Brother drum carder. The front Liquorin brush is 90 tines per inch, and my big Swift is 120 tines per inch, because I'm sure somebody will ask. I have the packing brush. I don't know if I would buy that again, just for the type of carding that I do. I often don't engage it, but I did for this just because I wanted them to be nice and smooth and relatively compact. So those are them. And that's how I did it. So I'm really hoping that next show I will actually have some video of me actually spinning. I didn't get a chance to do that this time around, but I do have a bobbin done. So this is going to be a 3-ply, very finely spun, about 48 wraps per inch for my singles. And I'm sure this is more than enough yardage for the finished shawl. I need 700 yards, and this is actually probably close to, this is over 1,000, I suspect. This is like 1,200 yards probably. 1,200 yards probably. Not 12,000, can you imagine? So this is the first bobbin done. This is about 10 of those nests of fiber. So I'll have 32 nests of fiber, and I'm going to spin a 3-ply. So I've been spinning 10 per bobbin. Yes, that gives me 2 left over, but that gives me an opportunity to do a 2-ply and a chain ply, because I'd really like to see what those little nests of fiber look like, just plied differently from the traditional 3-ply that I'm going to do with the remainder. So 10 nests spun to each bobbin, and then a traditional 3-ply. So that's the first bobbin done, and then I'll spin the last 2 and ply them differently, just for comparison more than anything. So Yeah, I use a wallpaper brush if I want to pack or smooth the fiber. What a great idea. I know some people use horse brushes or shoe shine brushes. That's what I've always used. They work really super well. Yeah, Dana says, what a great way to combine the fibers. My combo drafted spin was only 2 pieces of fiber together. I attenuated them together in my hand. You know, honestly, Dana, I think if there was only 2 colors, that's what I would have done. But the fact that I had the 3, and I had already spun this yarn knowing that it had ended up being really, really dense and thick, because you're trying to grab from all 3 nests at the same time, I thought, I wanted to try it this way, which I talked about in the last show. So yeah, just trying to find different ways of making it work, right? So, sorry, excuse me. Before we get into community participation, I am going to rest my voice for just a few minutes, and you guys can see what the last few weeks look like in my life. And I like sharing this because I know people share about what goes on in their lives under hashtag random in the Slack channel, and they share like different things that they're doing, trips that they're taking, different things. And I really enjoy seeing how our lives are so different. Some of us don't live that far away from one another, but some of us do live really far away. And sometimes it's hard to put together a picture of what somebody's life looks like when we're not just talking about the things that bring us together, which is what makes us kind of a bit of a tribe, right? All of the things that we're passionate about. What are the other things that we're passionate about outside of just our making? For many of us, probably our making is the big thing, but it's fun to see how we live. So I hope you enjoy this, and I'll see you guys on the other side. Thanks for watching, you guys. It's really fun for me to share and just kind of give you guys a bit of an insight into our life, and what happens around here, because it is very busy, like many of us who have young people at home, and I think it's just kind of neat to be able to share with you some of the other stuff that happens. I have to just make a comment though. A couple of people mentioned about the distances of driving, like that I had said it's just 5 hours. Lisa, really, you nailed it, Lisa. People who live in the Western US have no concept of time when driving because everything is so far apart. And it's not just the Western United States, it's Western Canada as well. Things are so far apart. And so I think, for the rest of the world, it's kind of a bit of a head scratcher. Like, what do you mean you would drive 5 hours for just a night or 2 nights or something? And it's a very long drive for those who don't live in this part of the world, and things are just so far apart. And it's sometimes hard to kind of get, even the kids noticed, like when we got down to the States, how much closer together things were. Like Seattle to Tacoma, and then Tacoma to Portland is not really that far away. Like you can tell that the density progressively increases as you get closer and closer to California. And as you get further north toward Whitehorse, away from Vancouver, going the other way, things get further and further apart. So it's definitely something really interesting. My dad used to talk about that when he first came to Canada. He was always, he didn't understand. Like he'd ask somebody, how far is that? And they'd say, I don't know, about an hour and drive, hour and a half. It's about an hour and a half away. And he'd be like, yeah, but like, how far is that? Like, how many miles are you driving? And they'd be like, I don't know, it's an hour and a half. So it's definitely just different reference points. And I find it really fascinating. I spend a huge amount of my life driving. And it's hard to articulate that sometimes and hard to explain that. So yeah, super interesting. My East Coast friends blow my mind, saying things like, I'm driving to Cape Cod. I should be there in 2 hours if traffic is okay from Connecticut. How? Yeah, Rebecca says, I was pretty amazed how you guys drove all the way to Jasper for 4 or 5 nights, where East Coast people driving that far would get us most of the way to Florida. Yeah, we drove 9 hours when Rebecca and I organized for our families to be together. Not this past May, but May of 2022. And I was like, oh yeah, we'll be there. It's only 9 hours. And she's like, what? I was like, it's only 9 hours. We'll leave at 6 a.m. It'll be fine. So anyhow, all right, let's do community participation because we're getting on in time. Dana actually makes a really good point. Hang on, I lost my screen. One sec here. Dana makes a really good point. She said in Southern California, we say it should take about an hour because of traffic, even though it's only like 20 minutes, or even though it's only about 20 miles to go. We deal with that here. It's really frustrating. Like to get to the kids' school, it's only about 10 minutes away. And, but every morning it takes us upwards of 40 minutes to get to school and for me to get home, and it's just traffic. And it's so unbelievably frustrating because you just feel like you're not even really driving. You're just sitting there, like you're just waiting. And it's just volume. It's the sheer volume and the number of people that live in the mega city that is the Pacific Northwest. And the mega city, there's like 5 mega cities in the world or something. I went to a talk. My parents went to a talk, and then my mom was telling me about it. There's like 5 mega cities in the world. So New York is one. The Toronto, Detroit area is another one. There's several in Asia. And then like Tokyo is one. And then another mega city that we don't think of as a mega city is Vancouver down to LA. So that is a mega city. And we forget about the population density that lives in this area. It's really, really interesting. All right, let's get on with it. We have a huge amount of community participation because of Tour de Fleece. So we didn't talk about Tour de Fleece today. I don't know why I missed that. I should talk about it at the end of the show. But we've got our Attune shawl knit along going on from June 15th till September 15th. And what Andrea and I were hoping was that people would spin for their shawl during Tour de Fleece, which is going on right now. So we'll talk about that in just a sec. So for people that are working specifically on their Attune shawl, I wanted to share a couple of the projects that are going on right now. So this is from Kathy. I thought this photo was just really beautiful. It's the first skein for her Attune shawl. It's off the wheel. Going for red, violet, gold, and green split complementary combo. It's just going to be beautiful. And then the contrast color is actually a dark green. This is going to be amazing. Beautiful photo, Kathy. This is from Ellen. She's plying her Attune shawl. So here we go. Beautiful. And this is from Liz. I'm so excited to spin for my Attune spin. This is Liz of Kingdom Fleece and Fiber Works. And I have to admit that bobbin on the far right corner, those grays and golds and that little bit of blue, I was like, oh, I just want to like take it. This is from Rebecca, you guys, hard pivot. She had a plan for her Attune shawl and then she changed it up. So this is what she's changed it to. She was thinking of trying a combo spin to be the new main color, and then she remembered this spin from Tour de Fleece in 2017. It's a BFL silk, and it has the opposite problem to the green of being imagined as part of a sweater when it's hardly too dark, when it's really too dark for a garment for me. This is a much better main color for me. And now for the contrast color. Do I stick with the Suffolk Kiviot blend that looks light gray? Do I use a white BFL that will be closer in texture? So she's doing some sampling right now for stage 1. I think the white would look the best. It'll be really light and bright, but I also think the gray would be really beautiful too. It'll tone it all down, make it a little bit more muted, a little bit more sedate. Whatever you decide, Rebecca, it's going to be beautiful. So Tour de Fleece Femme is running from July 1st until the end of July. It's Sunday, July 30th is when the whole thing wraps up for men and women. Hashtag Team Woolen Spinning on Instagram if you're sharing your progress. And don't forget to grab your team avatar, which is over there. You can grab it from the show notes at patreon.com and /woolen spinning. And you can use that for your avatar on Ravelry, on Instagram. It just shows that you're spinning with our team. So that is ongoing at the moment. This is from Nicole. First Tour de Fleece spin was a nice one. Rolled a 9. I'm not actually sure all of the numbers here. I'm not sure exactly what she means, but she called it Opal Fruits. She just attenuated the roll legs a bit and spun them in no particular order. I'll chain ply this, but I'll probably spin some singles of something else first. I thought the colors of this were beautiful. I wanted to share. This is from Lisa. What a great photo. She posted another one this morning too of having breakfast while she was watching, having her vanilla ice cream in her coffee, and she's watching the tour and spinning some cotton. Sounds like a blissful morning. Absolute bliss. Oh, of course, a 20-sided dice. Of course, D20 is a 20-sided dice, of course. From Christina, this is nearing the end of day 1. I have white fiber to show. Eve, I'm sure that you're just clamoring at the bit to spin some of this. White Beaumont for the win. I'm planning to spin some various sock yarns during this time. The fiber is English Lister, doing some dye sample swatches before each spin. Just beautiful, Christina. I love your spinning there. It's just gorgeous. From Kelly, as the mouse goes crazy, keeping it simple with 15 minutes a day for her goal. Here's my 20 minutes today. I'm working through all of my Long Way Homestead Breed of the Month club before I move on to anything else, and this was the target. So I actually wanted to mention really quickly, I've been thinking about my Long Way Homestead. I've done 5. I have 7 more to go. And I was actually thinking about doing that for spinning pearls starting in January. We're going to take a little bit of a break from year of color for 2024. It's been really intense. It's been amazing to come together as a community, but I thought it would be kind of neat to do a few months of like breed study specific yarns and talking about the advantages to breed specific yarns and talking about some of the ins and outs, some of the nuances of spinning breed specific yarns. So I'm just planting that seed if anybody would be interested in that. I do have 7 left to spin and to get through, and then I'll decide what I'm going to do with the yarns from there. This is from Eve. She's spinning her cashmere. Beautiful spinning, Eve. Absolutely gorgeous. This is from Diane. She just finished that huge John Arbin spin that I shared last show, and now she's working on this, a whole bag of Icelandic singles. I started this at Spin Group on Thursday, and I finished 1 bobbin and filled half of another one this morning. It makes me so happy to be doing something like this. I have some more somewhere in a bunch of, is it Putulopi? I can never, I don't know how to pronounce the O with the 2 dots on top. I know it's said differently and I'm not exactly sure how to say it, for contrast, and then one day it will grow up and be something really cool. Of course it will be. This is from Becca. Tour picks from me are about to get so boring, but I only have 50 grams left. So this Apple Door, which is the colorway that she's been spinning from John Arbin, has been going on her spindles for several years, and her goal is to finish it through the tour. So my hope for Becca is that she will have a ton of plied yarn by the end. This is from Deb. Finished plying the last of 3 bobbins of warp for a project using all hand spun. Bendigo Woolen Mills bump of forest green. Isn't that the most perfect forest green? You guys can see that I'm like on a green kick right now. The Schneider Turk holds 2 grams of, is it eggshell? Fiber, merino, tencel, and the Spindle Shop Suspended holds 8 grams of alpaca. Beautiful. Really lovely spinning there, Deb. This is from Elizabeth. I haven't spun with BFL before, and I just wanted to try it out. This is a periwinkle color from Nest Fiber. It does coordinate well with other singles that I already have, and my focus is on spinning daily, and hopefully I can get the hang of my spindle before an upcoming trip. Wonderful. This is from Megan, Tour de Fleece Day 1. This is spun up half of my contrast color for the Attune shawl, so about 4 ounces. Not usually my color, but trying to use stash. I don't know, Megan, this is going to be beautiful. Gorgeous colors. Pertulopi. Thank you, Christine. Pertulopi. I can remember that. Thank you for being here, Rebecca. She's heading off. She's got to help her 5-year-old. This is from Dion. First time actually watching some of the race. My husband was shocked and asked why I was watching it. I got a slow spinning start today, but I did finish prepping fiber that I plan to spin. These are a blend of bats that are a blend that she is made up using her Year of Color blend, dyed color wheel. Isn't that gorgeous? I'm not sure that these are that. I think that was from another photo. I think these are something else that she's working on, these sort of dark teal blue, teal green singles. I think this is for a sweater spin. I might be wrong. Dion, maybe you can leave a comment when you're watching this later. This is from Crystal. She was at Helen's farm, and she couldn't have asked for better company than Fiber Friends. Helene is part of our community as well, both old and new. I managed to pull off spinning and plying some gorgeous locks from the most amazing Teeswater fleece that I got at Maryland Sheep and Wool. I'm spinning it as part of a lock spin along that I'm doing with the Tipsy Spinner of the Sip and Spin podcast. I'll have better photos and details of the finished skeins tomorrow, but for now, here are some photos. So if you're on the Slack channel, she posted a whole bunch of photos to go with this, and they're really fun. This is from Florence, 1 gradient finish. So this is 25% of a sock spin. Beautiful spinning there, Florence. Love that color. This is from Kiara, lazy Tour de Fleece for me, just aiming spinning every day. Day 1 started with wheel spinning, continuing something that was already there, and I'm aiming to finish the braid by Saturday. Then Sunday I'll be traveling, so I'll challenge myself on my support spindles. Beautiful spinning, Kiara, as always. Just gorgeous. More from Christina, hand washed some locks and finished the first single for a 3-ply sock. Isn't that absolutely beautiful? I love seeing all these bobbin shots. I don't know about you guys, but I find it really, really inspiring. Really inspiring. This is from Suzanne, continuing to make progress on a combo spin. Gorgeous spinning, Suzanne. Absolutely beautiful on her Lendrum there. And we do have to do a little bit of Spindle Spun Summer because that's ongoing throughout the whole summer, and that's outside of Tour de Fleece. Some people are spinning on their spindles for Tour de Fleece, but I did want to make sure that we share throughout the summer some Spindle Spun Summer. So this is from Christine, Tour de Fleece day 1, and I got more spun than I thought that I would. I finished the last third of some blue and sparkly top and spun the first half of a Hebridean fiber from my Adelaide Walker Tour de Fleece mixed breed and fiber pack. Beautiful. She's got 21 different breeds to spin. See if she can do it. This is from Lisa. Beautiful photo, Lisa. Highlight interview with Andrew and Simon Yates, mom and dad. I'm combining the Spindle Spun